whether it is by land, air, or sea. You have a huge amount of passengers utilizing U.S. transportation systems every year, more than 300 million. And just last year, 28 million of those passengers chose, well, what you're looking at there, Amtrak, formerly known as the National Railroad Passenger Corporation. Amtrak has remained one of the go-to services for intercity rail travel, particularly here in the Northeast. But it also has challenges, be it outdated infrastructure causing delays or increased competition from other private rail companies. Here to talk about all that is, well, the president of Amtrak, Roger Harris, joining us right now from Union Station down in Washington, D.C. And Roger, great to have you back here on the program. I do want to start off. You guys have been spending a lot of money. Last time I checked, at least in the fiscal year last year, 2023, you had one of your biggest capital investments. The Biden administration gave you a big shot in the arm about a year ago, funneling several $billion to railroads here. How exactly is that money being spent?
Hi, Romaine. Thanks for having me back. It's good to be here. Well, it's going on a lot of different things. It's partly going on new fleets, so we have new trains coming. This winter, we're going to be hopefully putting into service our new Acela trains. Coming after that, in 2027, we will be launching our new Aero train sets on the Northeast Regional Service in the Northeast. So really a complete makeover of the trains that we have in the Northeast of the U.S. We're also spending a lot of money on new infrastructure, not only in things like tracks, signaling, and electrical infrastructure that really makes the railroad run every day, but also those really big 100-year investments in things like major bridges and tunnels. And that's really a lot of the work that we're going to have getting underway in earnest in 2025. So you mentioned that we had a lot of growth in our capital spending in 2023. Well, right. This year, 2024, we grew 50% from 2023.
And is that going to continue into 2025 and beyond? And if so, Roger, are some of those costs, are they going to be passed on to the commuter? Are they going to pay more in ticket prices?
So the large infrastructure items that we're talking about are primarily funded through the IIJA at this point. They won't inherently be passed on to the commuter in that form. We have a lot of other costs that are going up, though, at the same time. So there are price increases probably underway, but it's for all kinds of other inputs.
Roger, it's Alex. What's the biggest hurdle to you building these projects on time and on budget? Like, what's the risk that you take on in the medium term?
Alex, great question. One of the things we've done since the money was awarded is we have built up an incredible infrastructure of project management, project controls, things to make sure that we get the projects done right and that we don't have a lot of unpleasant surprises later on. There are a lot of steps that we have to go through, including environmental clearances, historical clearances. We work with our partners who are part investors in these projects, and those steps typically take a number of years. And that's why you don't see these projects delivering benefits yet, because the setup of the projects really takes a long time, but it's a necessary part of making sure that they're successful in the long run.
So then how do you compete, back to Romaine's original question, how do you compete then with more of the private players who can get in there in a different way and move money faster and build projects faster?
Very good question. We have a lot of efforts underway to be more efficient. So when you look at, for instance, our new Acelas that, as I said, we hope to launch this winter, they carry about 25% more customers than the previous Acelas, and they're about 25% lighter. So they're actually going to be 20% more energy efficient, and that translates directly into lower operating costs, especially on a per passenger basis.
You know, Roger, I am curious, when we talk long term about the future and the health of Amtrak, when we talk about the number of miles of tracks you have, the number of passengers you have, a lot of that is still, and correct me if I'm wrong, still weighted towards the Northeast corridor. And I am curious as to whether there are ambitions to do more outside of the Northeast, whether there is profitability to be had outside of the Northeast. Is there?
I think so. I mean, there's some very unique features of the Northeast Corridor that do help to make it profitable, including density, congestion, et cetera. But those things are happening all over the country as the country grows. We've been investigating the Texas High-Speed Rail project to see what we can do there to assist in the development of that project, because we think that's very promising. Between Dallas and Houston, it's a metro market of 15 million people, and perfectly situated for high-speed rail. We also have really exciting developments in North Carolina with the S-Line project, which also got some funding in the last round of grants from the FRA. And we continue to work with our partners in the Commonwealth of Virginia on extending and expanding rails between Washington, D.C. and Richmond, Virginia, which will eventually connect to the S-Line projects.
In addition to those issues, there's also the issue of delays and other things. Some of that has to do with, of course, the tracks that you control, or rather that you don't control. I know you guys have made some deals recently that gives you more control of tracks. Even in Union Station, where you're at right now, you've gained a greater degree of control of what comes in and out of there. Do you have more leverage to do that in other cities and other regions as well?
Well, I think we do. One of the things that we're really focused on is working with our partners to have the kind of relationships that really enable those improvements that you're talking about, whether it be our host railroads, the freight railroads that we run on. We're really trying to work hard to make sure that we understand their concerns. And also, all over the country, we're commuter agencies who are also an important part of the rail environment. And they're necessary parts of the environment in terms of the investments that need to be made.
Yeah. One just final quick question here. And you mentioned the host tracks that you're on. Obviously, a lot of those either owned or operated by the freight companies. There's a big potential strike in East Coast ports. It could have reverberations on rail lines. Is that going to affect Amtrak at all?
We don't expect it to. I mean, there may, in isolated situations, create congestion on the freight lines. But we don't expect it to impact our operations.